Dark screen, a single breath, then a whisper, close to your ear. What if the universe has been waiting, not years, but for the exact moment your attention locks into this sentence? Hold it just a second longer. Because what I'm about to reveal is not motivation, not fantasy, not a nice idea. It is a razor, one you will use to cut reality at its seams. And yes, you'll feel it. A subtle click, as if something hidden behind the ordinary world slides into alignment and looks back at you. The ancients called it sight beyond sight. Modern physics calls it the observer effect. You call it a coincidence, until the coincidences stack and the pattern refuses to be ignored. That pattern begins here, with your attention. Look around the room you're in. Lights, shadows, a silent choreography of objects doing nothing special. Now, without moving, let your gaze rest on one thing. A cup, a door handle, a photograph. Don't squint, don't strain. Just let your sight soften and fall. Feel what happens in your body, the way the object becomes slightly more alive, as if you're noticing feeds it energy. That subtle shift, barely there, yet undeniable, is the hinge of this entire journey. We were taught that reality is a stage, and we are the audience. But that story is incomplete. You are not seated in the dark rows, applauding from a distance. You are the light in the projector. When you change, the frames change. When the light narrows, details sharpen. When it widens, new scenes appear. And when you learn how to pulse it on command, the world responds with impossible precision. Skeptical, good. Skepticism is healthy. It means you still protect your doorway. Keep it. Just don't mistake the lock for the door itself. Imagine, for a moment, the famous double-slit experiment, electrons behaving like waves until a measurement is taken, then deciding to become particles. That shift isn't a children's trick. It is the universe confessing something intimate. The act of observing participates in the outcome, not later, not gradually, instantly at the point of contact between attention and possibility. So here is the first key. Simple, dangerous, liberating. Attention is not passive. Attention is a force. Point it unconsciously, and you reinforce whatever you fear. Point it deliberately, and you carve a tunnel through probability where a specific reality can rush in. Most people never learn to aim it. Their lives feel random because their gaze is scattered, split between worries, notifications, and inherited narratives that never belonged to them. But not you, not after tonight. Close your eyes for 3 heartbeats and listen. There's a hum beneath the noise of your thoughts. A field, quiet, patient, responsive. When you open your eyes again, you'll bring that field with you, like stepping from a dim room into a cathedral of light. Ready? Open. Pick a single intention. Small, concrete, testable. A call returned. A parking spot. A message that arrives with uncanny timing. Don't reach for destiny in one leap. Engineers test circuits with tiny voltages before they power the whole grid. You're about to test your field. Now, and this matters, pair the intention with a felt image. Not a blurry daydream, a crisp snapshot that carries emotion, relief in your chest, warmth at the base of your skull, a soft release in your shoulders, as if the result has already clicked into place. Let that sensation rise, then hover, like a hawk, circling. No strain, just a steady orbit of attention and feeling. You'll notice resistance, a voice muttering, "This is silly." Perfect. There it is, the watchdog at the gate. Don't fight it. Acknowledge it, then slide your attention back to the image. Each return strengthens the signal. Each gentle return says to the field, this channel is open. This frequency is live. Count quietly to 7, 1 breath per number. With each number, imagine your attention tightening its focus, thread by luminous thread, until the image becomes inevitable. If doubt returns, it's fine. Doubt has no claws when you keep moving. 7. There. Hold the afterglow. 2 seconds. 3. Release. Do you feel it? That subtle clarity, like a bell that has been struck in the center of your life. Keep listening. The ring lingers. This is not the end of mysticism, nor the end of science. It is their handshake. The observer is not a character in your story. The observer is the faculty in you that edits the script while the scene is still being filmed. And when you learn to occupy that seat, you don't manifest things by force. You invite them by alignment, like a radio that stops hissing when it finds the exact station. One more thing before we go deeper, because it will save you months of frustration. The field responds to clarity, not strain. If you push, it recoils. If you posture, it mirrors the theater. But when you stand quiet, inside a confident yes, doors that were walls a moment ago begin to behave differently. People pivot. Messages move. Time bends, not in grand spectacles, but in elegant timing that feels like grace. Tonight you tasted a fraction of it. In a moment, we'll reveal the second key, how to stabilize the observer so it doesn't flicker with your moods, and how to keep your signal clean when the world shouts for your attention, because the world will shout, and you will learn to whisper back in the language reality obeys. Stay with me, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and nothing stays ordinary. The silence that follows the first glimpse is never empty. It's charged, like the air just before a storm, trembling with electricity you can't yet see. That's what you carry now, the echo of the experiment you just performed on yourself. And this echo is more than a feeling. It's an initiation. But here's the trap. Most people experience this spark and dismiss it. They call it imagination, placebo, coincidence. They return to autopilot, blind to the fact that the very autopilot is what shackles them to the same repeating loops of reality. Don't fall into that. Not now. Not when the door is cracked open. Let's dig deeper. You've heard it said that seeing is believing, but the observer's law inverts that believing is seeing. And this isn't motivational fluff, it's mechanics. Your nervous system is a filter, not a camera. The brain deletes 99% of sensory data before you're even aware of it. Why? To protect the model of the world you've already chosen to accept. So when you shift the observer, when you deliberately alter the lens, the entire stream of perception rearranges to match. You don't just see differently, you select differently. And reality, patient but precise, supplies evidence to confirm the choice. Think of it this way. A man walks into a crowded street fair. He's starving, and what leaps out? Food stalls? Aromas? Sizzling grills? Trays of sweets? Another man enters. He's a pickpocket. He sees not the food, but pockets, purses, the distracted sway of strangers. A third arrives. She's an artist. Her eyes lock on colors, brushstrokes of graffiti, the way light splinters through glass bottles on a stand. Same street, same moment, different worlds. Each observer calls forward a reality tailored to the lens of attention. Now here's the revelation. Your life is not out there. It's stitched together, moment by moment, inside this corridor of perception. And the question is not, what reality exists? But rather, which version of reality do I allow myself to observe into being? Feel that sink in. Because if you truly grasp this, excuses begin to dissolve. Fate loses its chains. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what lens am I holding right now? But don't be fooled. This isn't easy. The observer is slippery. It flickers with moods, with fears, with the tides of collective belief swirling all around you. One day you glimpse your power, the next day you swear it was illusion. This oscillation is normal. It's the training ground. Here's the second key. Stabilization. Picture a candle flame in a drafty room, flickering, fragile. Now picture the same flame inside a glass lantern, steady, bright, undisturbed. Your observer is the flame, beliefs, emotions, social noise. They are the draft. The art is learning how to build the lantern. How? Start small. Each morning before the avalanche of distractions, choose one perception to anchor. Not a grand vision, just one thread. For example, today people are kinder than I thought. Hold it gently. Throughout the day, notice how the world conspires to confirm it. The smile from a stranger, the door held open, the unexpected text. Each observation stabilizes the flame, and slowly you realize it was never about the world changing first. It was about you claiming the role of selector. And here's the micro cliffhanger, the warning hidden in plain sight. If you refuse this role, someone else will select for you. The media, the crowd, the loudest voice in the room. And then you wonder why your life feels scripted by forces you never agreed to. But if you step into the seat of the observer, you write not every detail, but the direction, the tone, the music beneath the scenes. Lean in now, because in a moment, we'll pierce the third veil, the veil of time itself. And once you see how the observer bends not only perception but sequence, you'll understand why mystics spoke of destiny as clay, not stone. Stay close, because the next turn will feel impossible, until it's obvious, and then you'll never walk through a moment of your life the same way again. Time. We've been taught it flows like a river, constant, unbending, dragging us forward, whether we resist or surrender. But what if that river is not what it seems? What if, instead of being passengers, we are the ones tilting the current with every glance, every choice, every subtle act of observation? Pause. Let that sink in. Because the third veil hides here. Time is not linear in the way you've been told. Physicists already whisper it. Particles entangled across vast distances communicate instantly, as though distance doesn't exist. And if distance can fold, why not time? Mystics knew this, long before laboratories confirmed it. They wrote of fate, not as a straight line, but as a tapestry, threads interwoven, overlapping, rearranged by the hand that dares to weave. So here's the question: if the tapestry is flexible, who holds the needle? You, the observer. When your focus locks onto a possibility, it doesn't just color your present, it ripples backward and forward, pulling into alignment events that seem disconnected. That's why sometimes you think of someone and they call within minutes, or you decide on a goal and suddenly notice opportunities that had been invisible all along. Skeptics call it bias. But look closer, the timing is too precise, the orchestration too elegant. This is not bias, it is synchronization. Let me show you. Close your eyes. Yes, again. This time, imagine two doors in front of you. Behind one is a version of your life shaped by hesitation, by repeating patterns, by fear disguised as logic. Behind the other, momentum, alignment, conversations, and meetings that seem designed by a hidden hand. Which door glows brighter? Which one makes your chest expand instead of contract? That is the observer's choice point. And here's the paradox: whichever door you look at, truly look at, begins to gather evidence around it, until walking through feels inevitable. So, which door are you feeding? This is why the ancients spoke of prophecy, not as a fixed fate, but as probabilities collapsing under the gaze of the seer. To see is to select, to observe is to sculpt. And here lies the third key: bend the sequence. How? By rehearsing the feeling of the outcome before the outcome exists. When you align your inner movie with gratitude, relief, and certainty, not someday, but now, you tilt the current of time. The phone rings sooner, the message arrives out of nowhere. The chain of events compresses, pulling the later into the now. You felt this before without naming it. Those uncanny days when everything just lines up, when time itself seems to serve you, instead of confine you. That was no accident. That was the observer slipping its hand into the loom of reality. But here's the cliffhanger, the challenge few dare to face. If you can bend time toward grace, you can also bend it toward chaos. Focusing on dread summons delays, cancellations, obstacles that stack like dominoes. The field doesn't punish, it mirrors. Which means the weight of your gaze is not neutral. It is creative, whether you aim it or not. So listen carefully, because in the next revelation, we'll explore how to cleanse the observer, how to strip away the interference of fear and doubt, so that your signal doesn't just bend time, it sings through it. And once you hear that song, once you learn to play it deliberately, you will never again mistake yourself for a passenger on the river of time, because you'll know you were the river all along. The moment has come. Knowledge, without practice, is just another story. But the observer is not a story. It's a doorway. And to walk through, you must act. Not with force, not with effort, but with alignment. Tonight, you'll perform your first ritual as an observer, simple, precise, and powerful enough to leave an imprint you'll never forget. Take a breath. Slow. Let it glide down to your stomach. Exhale gently. Again. With each inhale, imagine drawing in, not air, but light, a subtle current that threads through your chest and spine. With each exhale, release the static, the noise, the doubts that keep your gaze scattered. Already the field listens. Already the pattern begins. Now close your eyes, or soften them if you prefer, and picture a vast canvas of darkness, not empty, but pregnant, as if stars are waiting to be born within it. This is the quantum field, possibility in raw form. On this canvas, imagine a single point of golden light, pulsing slowly. That light is your observer, distilled, focused, sovereign. Each pulse spreads ripples across the canvas, bending the darkness into waves. Watch how reality stirs when you choose to see. Now, choose an intention, small, yet meaningful. It could be a conversation that flows with grace, a sign that arrives with perfect timing, a burden that feels suddenly lighter. Hold it not as a wish, but as a completed fact. Picture the scene after it has already happened. Hear the laughter, the words, the tone. Feel the texture of relief in your body, the exhale of yes, it is done. Let that sensation be the brush that paints your intention onto the canvas. Stay there, breathe. Let the golden light pulse with the image, each beat engraving the outcome into the field. But listen, this is where most fail. They cling, they beg, they strain, and the field, ever honest, mirrors their tension back as delay. You must learn the paradox, hold with clarity, release with trust. Imagine placing your painted image gently onto the rippling canvas, and then stepping back. Watch as the waves carry it outward, multiplying, weaving it into threads of time you cannot see. Now, open your eyes. Feel the subtle shift, the afterglow. That is not fantasy, it is resonance. The observer's imprint lives in you and in the field now, no longer separate. Watch how the world bends to meet it. You might notice the first signs within hours, a chance word, a sudden alignment. Do not dismiss these as coincidence. Each one is a confirmation, a whisper, that reality is responding to your gaze. But here's the hook. What you've just done is a seed. And seeds, if left unattended, die. The key is to water them with steady attention, not obsession, but remembrance. Return to the feeling as often as you can, not with desperation, but with gratitude, as though you're revisiting a memory, instead of waiting for a future. This is how the observer stabilizes. This is how you bend the fabric without tearing it. And here is your test. In the coming days, the old patterns will try to reclaim you. Distractions, doubts, echoes of the past. They will tempt you to scatter your focus, to forget the flame inside the lantern. But now you know. Now you've felt the pulse, and once felt, it cannot be unfelt. Because the truth is this, the observer is not something you become. It is what you already are, hidden beneath the noise. The ritual simply clears the fog, reminding you of your native seat of power. Stay here with me, because in the next unveiling, we'll push further. You will discover how to cleanse the lens itself, so your signal shines without distortion, and the universe has no choice but to answer. The golden light you awakened is real, but let's be honest. Most people never hold it steady. Why? Because the lens of the observer becomes clouded. Old beliefs, doubts, emotional scars. They act like smudges on glass. You can shine the brightest light, but if the lens is dirty, the projection distorts. So the next step is cleansing, not with incense or fire, but with the science of frequency, vibration, and coherence. Everything you are is a frequency. Your heartbeat, your brain waves, the subtle hum of your cells, they all emit rhythms. When those rhythms are chaotic, scatter, stress, fear, they scramble the signal. When they are coherent, calm, aligned, rhythmic, the signal pierces through the field like a laser, Coherence is clarity. Coherence is power. So how do you cleanse the observer? By tuning your frequency deliberately. Let's practice. Sit comfortably. Place your hand on your chest, just over the heart. Inhale to a slow count of 5. Hold for 2. Exhale for 5. Keep that rhythm. As you do, imagine your heart becoming a tuning fork, vibrating with golden coherence. Each breath washes away the static, the residue of fear. Each exhale clears the smudges from the lens. Feel it. Subtle, but undeniable, like glass wiped clean, until the image sharpens. Now bring a feeling, not a thought, not a wish, a feeling that carries resonance. Gratitude, love, awe. Let it flood your chest. Science has measured this. Gratitude stabilizes the heart rhythm into coherence, creating a frequency that extends beyond your body, interacting with the electromagnetic field around you. Mystics called it aura. Physics calls it resonance. The names differ, but the effect is the same. The signal cleans itself. Here's where it gets thrilling. Once you generate coherence, the observer stops flickering. Your attention locks. Possibility collapses faster. It's like upgrading from a shaky flashlight to a high-powered beam that cuts through the fog. Suddenly, reality doesn't just respond, it organizes itself with elegance. You may notice synchronicities multiplying, unexpected opportunities, conversations aligning, even physical energy in your body lifting. Don't brush it off. These are not random perks, they're feedback, proof that your frequency is broadcasting clearly. But here's the cliffhanger. Coherence is a state, not a one-time ritual. You must train it like a muscle. If you skip it, the noise creeps back in. If you nurture it daily, even for 5 minutes, you stabilize the observer to a degree most people will never know. And once stabilized, you unlock the next revelation. The observer not only bends time and space, it begins to influence matter itself. Events, objects, even the so-called solid world start to mirror your frequency. This is the frontier where science and mysticism blur, where the impossible starts to behave like the inevitable. Stay with me, because in the next step, you'll discover how the observer bridges from personal reality to collective reality. And once you glimpse how your focus shapes not just your world, but the world we share, you'll understand why this secret was guarded for centuries. We move now from theory into evidence, shards of science that refuse to sit politely in textbooks when you hold them up to the light. This is where the language of labs and the language of mystery begin to rhyme. First, an experiment you already met by name, but it deserves the spotlight again, the double-slit E-tiny. Particles, electrons, photons, fly toward 2 slits. With no measurement, they behave like waves, creating interference patterns as if each particle explores many paths at once. Measure, observe, which slit they pass through, and the wave collapses into a particle. The interference vanishes. The act of measurement alters outcome, not metaphorically, not later, at the instant of contact. The universe, at its smallest scale, refuses to be indifferent to being seen. Then there's the delayed choice experiment, Wheeler's provocation. It asks, does the particle decide its past behavior depending on how we choose to measure it now? In other words, the act of present observation can retroactively determine what the system was. Strange? Yes. Useful? Deeply. It suggests that observation doesn't merely record reality. It participates in how reality arranges itself across time. Another blade in this set, the quantum Zeno effect. Repeated observation can freeze change. Watch a quantum system often enough and tightly enough, and you inhibit its evolution. Attention, in high cadence, can arrest an unfolding. It's as if focused noticing holds the story steady. And entanglement, 2 particles remain linked so that the state of one instantaneously informs the state of the other, across distance. Entanglement whispers, separation is an illusion at a fundamental level. Observers entangle outcomes by choosing what to measure, collapsing a web of probabilities into a coherent result. These are not parlor tricks. They are experimental facts. Strange, precise, reproducible. But here's the crucial translation, the bridge between lab bench and living room. The quantum realm, is not a fairyland divorced from our lives. The same principles that govern tiny particles scale, in effect and metaphor, into human domains when you treat attention as an operator on probability. Now the practical, how have people applied this? Not with headline-grabbing miracles, but with exacting adjustments that produce measurable, repeated shifts in experience and outcome. I'll give you 3 condensed, credible examples. Real situations reframed through the observer's lens. The entrepreneur who needed meetings to align. She began each day with a 2-minute coherence ritual, breath to 5, felt image of the meeting outcome, and a 1-sentence mental anchor. This conversation flows. Within a week, scheduling hiccups smoothed. Key contacts replied with unusually prompt availability. Projects that had lingered found a rhythm. Did the ritual force the world? No. It tuned her perception and behavior. She noticed different opportunities, sent clearer messages, and behaved in ways that invited alignment. The field reflected the sharpened signal, the artist seeking breakthrough. He focused his observer on color relationships rather than on success. For 30 days he practiced a target exercise, find one truth in a painting, and dwell on it until the feeling hardened. Suddenly galleries that had been silent began to contact him. He was the same person, and yet because his attention had been recalibrated, different elements in his environment cohered toward the pattern he supported. The laboratory teams using intention-based protocols with random number generators, RNGs, over decades, various controlled studies have explored whether directed human intention can bias RNG output, slightly above chance. Results sit in contested territory, small effects, debated methodology. But the pattern is illustrative when intention is clear, consistent, and backed by a stabilized observer state. Anomalies can appear. Not flashy miracles, tiny shifts, but the principle matters. Coherent attention can influence systems that otherwise behave randomly. Notice the formula hidden in all these examples: clarity plus coherence plus repetition equals sign signal. Clarity sets the target. Coherence amplifies the beam. Repetition trains the system to recognize and respond. So what does that look like in practice for you, step by step? Here's a distilled protocol you can test immediately. Choose a small verifiable outcome, a courteous reply within 24 hours, a parking space, a short conversation that resolves gently. Create a tight sensory image of the outcome: sound, smell, physical sensation. Make it as concrete as a photograph. Generate coherence: 3 minutes of paced breathing, 5 in, hold 2, 5 out, while holding the image and a single emotion: relief, gratitude. Pulse your attention. Visualize the outcome for 30 seconds, rest for 10, repeat 3 times. Then release the image into the field with a soft, confident mental command. It's done. Return to life. Do not barrage. Observe, note results, no matter how small. Record them. Small wins compound. Each confirmation tightens your observer signal and shifts probability distributions around you. Over time, your field becomes more likely to produce aligned outcomes spontaneously, because you have trained not only perception, but the responsive mechanics of your life. But heed this caution: anecdote is seductive, and pattern seeking can deceive. Always test with humility. Keep the outcomes modest, and track them. This is how an artist becomes a scientist of intention. This is how the observer becomes reliable. Next, we will scale the frame. How does the observer move from the personal to the shared? How can your tuned attention resonate into the web of relationships, teams, cities, even culture, without collapsing into wishful thinking? The answer begins with coherence multiplied, synchronized observers forming a chorus, and the sound that chorus makes alters the architecture of what's possible. Stay close, because when minds tune together, probabilities roar into new shapes. You've seen the observer bend the personal lens, but what happens when more than one observer synchronizes? When attention converges, sharpened, coherent, amplified, the effects are not linear, they multiply. Consider this: one violin alone is delicate. 100 violins, tuned to the same note, can shake the walls of a concert hall. Human attention works the same way. Individually, you can bend the sequence of your life. Collectively, You can tilt the probability field of entire groups, cultures, even global events. Modern science has stumbled onto this without quite knowing how to name it. Experiments at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab ran for decades, showing small but consistent anomalies in random systems when groups of people focused their attention together. Meditation studies reveal measurable reductions in crime rates, hospital admissions, even warlike activity in regions where large groups generated coherent states. Critics argue, but the data whispers, when human minds synchronize, reality itself listens. Mystics already knew. Ancient rituals, prayer circles, fire ceremonies, these were never just symbolic. They were collective tuning forks, aligning many observers into one frequency. What science calls field effect, they called spirit. Different words, same mechanics. Now, let's make this practical for you. Think of your immediate circle, friends, colleagues, family. Most interactions are noisy, fractured, distracted. Each person radiates their frequency, clashing more often than harmonizing. But what if you could introduce coherence into the group? What if you trained not only your own observer, but invited others into alignment? Here's how. Begin with shared intention, not grandiose, not abstract. Something simple yet unifying. Today, let's experience ease in our conversation. Or tonight, let clarity guide us. The key is clarity and simplicity. Next, synchronize the state. Guide everyone into 3 minutes of paced breathing together. Count silently or aloud. Inhale 5. Hold 2. Exhale 5. Within 90 seconds, heart rhythms begin to sync, brainwaves start to resonate. You've created coherence. Then anchor the image. Ask each person to visualize the same outcome: a smooth meeting, a joyful meal, a successful collaboration. Layer the images together in the shared field. It's like many lasers combining into a single beam. Finally, release together. Laugh, speak, act, move forward. Observe how the group begins to flow differently. Fewer interruptions, more synchronicity, unexpected solutions emerging from nowhere. It may feel subtle at first, but repeat it, track it. What begins as coincidence will grow into confirmation. You will notice the group dynamic itself reorganize, not by control, but by coherence. And here's the cliffhanger, the dangerous beauty of this principle. If aligned attention can tilt probabilities toward harmony, it can also tilt them toward division. Groups focusing unconsciously on fear, outrage, conflict, they too amplify. Their coherence distorts the field, and the world bends accordingly. Look around. You can see the evidence everywhere, which means your responsibility is larger than your own outcomes. Every act of coherent observation is not only personal, it's participatory in the collective dream we call reality. You are not an isolated observer, you are a node in a vast network of attention. And once you grasp that, the secret sharpens into a command: tend your focus, not just for yourself, but for the field we all share. Because every thought, every pulse of coherent intention, leaves a signature that ripples outward far beyond what you'll ever witness. In the next and final unveiling, we will integrate everything. You will see how the observer's secret personal, temporal, collective, converges into a single truth, that reality is not waiting to be discovered. It is waiting to be chosen, and you now trained, now awake, are ready to choose. Ayil Gon. This is the last step, and also the first step you'll repeat for the rest of your life. Lean closer. I'm not speaking to crowds. I'm speaking to you. Not the part that scrolls, reacts, or performs, but the part that has always watched from the seams, the observer. Tonight you have learned its nature, how attention carves reality, how time bends, how coherence amplifies signal. Now we stitch those lessons into a living practice that fits your days, your breath, your small, undeniable choices. Listen, nothing grand is required. The universe does not demand drama. It responds to fidelity. A minute held well is worth an hour wasted in anxious striving. So here is the final protocol, intimate, precise, and built to be lived. Morning alignment, 1 minute before your phone, before the news, before the world's loudness hits your ears. Sit upright. Breathe in for 5. Hold 2 out for 5. Create a tiny, luminous image of one small outcome for your day. A clear conversation, a calm commute, a moment that lands with ease. Feel it as if it were already done. Faint, real, warm. Open your eyes and move into the day, carrying that frequency like a coin in your pocket. This simple deposit signals the field. Here is the tone I choose. Micro rehearsals, 3 moments, 20 seconds each. At 3 separate times, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, before sleep. Close your eyes for 20 seconds and replay the same image with feeling, not effort. Replay. Each return is a reinforcement. Think of it as checking the lock on a door. Quick, quiet, effective, and if resistance rises, notice it, breathe through it, then return. Resistance is noise, not verdict. Night integration, 3 minutes before sleep. Lie still. Let your breath slow. Replay the day and gently notice the confirmations, the small alignments, the odd timings, the unexpected kindness. Offer gratitude for each one. Gratitude refines coherence. It calms the nervous system and polishes the lens. End with a whispered sentence to yourself. It's done. Not command. Not demand. A soft fact. Then rest. This is how the observer learns to hold its shape overnight. Now a few caveats, because truth without caution becomes myth. The observer is not a talisman against hardship. It does not erase complexity, grief, or the hard lessons life delivers. Rather, it changes how you meet them. When you observe from clarity, even difficulty becomes a material to sculpt, less a trap, more a resource. When you observe from fear, difficulty multiplies. The mechanics are mercilessly impartial. So choose the posture that serves you. Choose experiments over certainty. Keep outcomes small and verifiable at first. Track them. Be your own scientist. Keep a tiny journal. Date, intention, result. Over weeks, patterns will emerge. They will either validate your practice or point to the distortions still clinging to your lens. Both are gifts. One more practical hinge. Language. Words shape attention. Replace "I hope" with "I intend." Replace "maybe" with "I'm testing." These small shifts direct the observer to behave like an instrument, rather than a spectator. They align the nervous system with the signal you want to broadcast. And now the final revelation, whispered. The observer does not separate you from life. It returns you to life. It is not an escape hatch. It is the deepest entrance. When you learn to observe from coherence, your relationships soften, your decisions sharpen, your hours condense into meaningful minutes. You will not become supernatural. You will become more human, focused, present, decisive. And what looks like miracle will be the natural arithmetic of attention applied with fidelity. Before we close, one last experiment to carry with you. Tonight, when a small thing moves in your favor, the exact timing you requested, the call you wanted, the conversation you hoped for, stop, breathe, mark it, taste it. Let your body register confirmation. Then say, internally, "Thank you, I see you." This tiny ritual trains your nervous system to recognize answers and to increase the signal-to-noise ratio. It teaches the observer what counts. If you choose to continue this work, you will find the world less like a machine that happens to you and more like a partner you converse with. Sometimes stubbornly, sometimes playfully, always responsively. That is the covenant the ancients whispered about. That is the secret modern labs are only beginning to map in equations. You now stand at the meeting place of both. A final word, tender, uncompromising. Use this power wisely. Turn your gaze to craft, to healing, to clarity. Don't waste it on revenge, petty triumphs, or illusions of control. The observer magnifies intent. Let your intent be generous. Let it be true. When you're ready to deepen this practice, longer rituals, synchronized exercises for partners, or experiments with tangible outcomes, we will walk that path together. If you want more guided practices in English for your channel, I can shape these protocols into short, voiceover-friendly segments for Mystic Mind, clear, cinematic, and ready to record. Now breathe once more, slow, deep, Feel the steadiness you have begun to build. Keep the image, keep the rhythm, and step back into your life. The world is listening. You have the voice. Thank you for holding the light.